Hi, Jack. Hi, Catherine, Ellen, Maeve, and all your families. I'm putting a little bit together here to give you some of my memories of your mom, or in your case, your wife, Jack. Having known you all for over almost 44 years, there are an awful lot of memories, more than I can fit into a half an hour video. So if you'd like to know more about some of the stories I'm telling you, just feel free to call me. And maybe I'll make another video sometime. I'm looking forward to a larger memorial tribute once this darn pandemic is over. And maybe I can participate long distance from either Skype or Zoom. When you have friendships as long as I was friends with your mom and dad, a lot of things happened during those years. I watched you, Catherine, Ellen, and Maeve grow up, and those memories will always be with me. You know, when I had cancer, the support I got from your mom and dad was incredible. As your mom would always say, "We got your back," and they sure did. And I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for them. So, what follows are some anecdotes that sort of weave together my remembrances of your mom. And I'll think of it later on, and I'll probably have more to say, but this is just a starter. And I hope you enjoy it. And can't think of anything else I want to say, except we'll just get started. As you all know, your mom had the best smile and the best laugh. I can still hear her. When I'd make trips to Chicago, she'd always manage to say, "Well, let's go in the living room and talk." She liked to stitch and bitch, as she used to call it. I had, let's see, well, I was divorced by the time I met your mom for the first time, and I was single for 5.5 years, and so periodically I've had different dates, and your mom would always sort of behind her back give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, and she really knew how to call them. I remember I had a date with me when Catherine was baptized. I know I stood next to Sug, but I had a date that actually came back to the house afterwards. As I recall, she was Irish also. She worked for the city of Chicago, and I think your mom liked her, but nothing really became of that. Later, before I met Kira, I dated this hillbilly from West Virginia, and your mom just couldn't hold back her disapproval, and we laid out on the Evanston beach, and we got sunburned so bad. I remember, I think it was Ellen gave me some solar cane or something, because we put aloe vera stuff on it, it burned. But we went to Don Moore's house, a high-rise up overlooking Grant Park, and her name was Frankie. Real name was Frances, but everybody called her Frankie. And your mom was only too happy to talk to me when I got back to Pittsburgh and telling me what a big mistake I was making. As usual, she was right. I spent several Thanksgivings at different apartments, but I remember the most different houses. What's wrong with me? I remember one of the most memorable ones was the time we took the turkey out of the oven and it slipped off the tray and almost hit the floor, and the dog was right there ready to gobble it up. But on the last minute, we saved it. Remember, and several times when Jack and Maria went on vacation, I babysat or dog sat for Lady. I don't know if you girls remember who Lady was, but Lady was this cute little terrier, and I bring her over to my house on Winthrop Avenue, and she got along pretty well with my dog. And I don't think Maria was particularly fond of Lady, but she tolerated her. And I think she was always happy to see Lady get a little break from her and vice versa. One night when your dad was out of town, Maria, JC, and I went out drinking. I think we might have gone someplace to listen to music, as I recall. But we ended up at the Golden Nugget restaurant on the corner of Broadway and Devon. And we went in there, and in walked two of Chicago's finest. And your mom was not feeling anything that night. She goes up to the guy and she says, "I bet you I can pull this tie off your neck." And sure enough, she did, because cops always wore fake ties so people couldn't choke them. And at that point, I sat there and I thought, holy shit, we're all going to jail. But the cop just laughed and pretty much ignored us as we continued to eat whatever we were eating to try to sober up. One time when Ann and I lived in Vermont, we took the ferry across from Connecticut to Long Island, and we stayed at your grandmother's, at Mary's house. And on one occasion, we scooted Mary out of the house so we could clean the house so she could bring her bridge club or somebody back in at a later time. But I remember at night, I set up my little CD player with the speakers, and we listened to Willie Nelson's Starlight album, all old songs, Moonlight in Vermont, Stardust, and I remember dancing with Mary, and the rest was, I don't know if your dad danced. I'm trying to picture, I don't know if I even saw Jack there. You were probably there, Jack. I just don't remember that part of it. But we had a good time. Oh, I before I forget, I would go to your mom's, Carol Robertson, basketball banquets. And I remember one night in particular, it was winding down and people were cleaning up, and your dad and I and your mom were still there. And I think your dad said, "I'll pick up eggs and cheese," or something like that. And I yelled, "I'll get the milk." And so there was this woman there who I think worked for the state. And the following Monday, I guess Maria bumped into her, talked to her, and she says she's really confused because she doesn't know who to marry, either Jack or Rich. And this poor woman, I think, really was totally dumbfounded, only to find out later that she had cancer. And we all felt so bad for pulling that prank on her. But anyway, I ended up being an usher in the wedding, along with one of your dad's friends from Florida, I believe. And at the point where the priest said, "If there's anybody out there who has any reason to object to this marriage, speak up, for forever hold your peace." And so Jack's buddy yelled out, "Line forms in the rear," and I chimed in, "Pick a number." Well, that little event became somewhat legendary, and I'm sure Maria remembered that to other people for years afterwards. The blizzard of 1979, I had a pair of cross-country skis. So I skied all the way up from my place on Winthrop, up Broadway, up to your, I think at that point you were living on Whelan. And I made it up there, and all Jack would do is run out of the house every half hour and buy toilet paper and peanut butter. To which your mom would show me a cupboard in the house that was filled with peanut butter. I don't know if you ever finished all of that, Jack, by now, but I'm sure there still might be some jars left. Maria called me one day and she told me that she was buying furniture for the TV room and for the living room and getting rid of your dad's crummy bookshelves. And I believe she had this all replaced and set up by the time your dad got home, and I think he was a bit surprised, but it really made the TV room look great, and the bookshelves in the living rooms never looked better. It was a good place to store all those Lenin, Trotsky, and books by Marx. Carrie and Amara adored your mom. They were both very shocked when they heard the news, just as everybody else was. But growing up, Maria one time came to Carrie's high school football game. I think she was going to Washington and she laid over in Pittsburgh. And boy, that was a treat. So much so that the coach asked if she'd be available to come back next week or the following week. She also came along once to one of his games at University of Chicago. And I think Catherine and Ian and I think Teddy came. It was around Halloween. I think Teddy was wearing like a dinosaur costume. But once again, your mom was I'll be sure to send them to you. But it was actually Maria. We found out, about a week or less before the wedding, that the Moonies, the Unification Church, just bought the Rogers Park Women's Club. Well, that was pretty sensitive in Ann's family because her brother was once rescued from the Moonies. So we knew her parents didn't want to have anything to do with that, so your mom made the call to David Orr, and David interceded so that the sale of the building didn't take place until after our wedding and reception was over. That was the kind of stuff your mom did. When she worked for the city, for the Department of Human Services, periodically we'd have lunch together downtown, and she loved to tell stories about some of her co-workers. Names were not mentioned to protect the innocent, and I always enjoyed listening to those. One year we had a parade from your house on Estes. I think it was New Year's Eve. Bob Thrasher and Betsy were there. I had my cornet, and we got some pots and pans and went out in the street and made a pretty much of annoyance out of ourselves, I'm sure. Just like another time, we went up to visit some of your friends, your dad and mom's friends up on, I think, along the lake shore in Evanston, and we did the same pot and pan routine then, but that was only inside the house. I don't remember that one very well. Dave Peel, who you all know, came to visit me in Pittsburgh once, and Dave and Amar and Carrie and I rented a pontoon boat and went out on Lake Arthur up in north of Pittsburgh fishing. And when your mom heard about that, boy, she was really jealous. She only wished I would have told her in advance what was going on, and she might have joined us. She did come to Pittsburgh one time and stayed with Kira and me, and I think she just needed to get some fresh air, and we stayed up all night. By that time I wasn't drinking anymore, so I wasn't really drinking, but Maria and Kira were enjoying their gin and tonic or whatever it was they were drinking. Jack, you might remember this, but one time, well, we used to go out to dinner, a group of us, Joe and Judy, Guy and Paula, Scott and Pat, Jack and Maria, and me. I was always the fifth or the seventh wheel. Occasionally I'd show up with a date, but we'd go out to a different ethnic restaurant every Friday night. And sometimes they weren't too ethnic. One time we went to a crepe restaurant on Broadway, and we had to wait so long to get a table. Someone opened up a door in the lobby, and there was where they stored the liquor. So we looked at each other. We knew what we were thinking. So we each went and grabbed a bottle of liquor out of the closet, hid it under our coats, and we left. That was the kind of stuff your mom did. So take note, Catherine, Ellen, and Maeve, don't do those things when you get older. Boy, I'm trying to think. I have so many crazy things. I called your mom at around 8:30 Chicago time on June 9th. And I'd call her, or she'd call me periodically. And the call would sort of begin when she'd call me. She said, "So Rich, this is Maria." And then we'd get into our discussion. So my return would always be, "So Maria, what's going on?" So she told me all she did was talk about Archie, Teddy, and Evie. I think she talked about that maybe your dad were planning a trip to Vermont, if I'm not mistaken. She told me about how she was planning a retirement. She'd retire in a year, and she wanted to make sure that the transition was smooth and steady. I asked her when Jack was going to retire. She said probably never, and I would have to agree. We talked about the time that a group of us went down to the Earl of Old Town to see John Prine. And she asked about Amara and Patrick, Carrie. I know she was very frustrated with why Carrie didn't come visit us more frequently, but she always gave me good advice. Whenever I talked to Maria, I'd always go away feeling that I was a better person, because even when I had stupid ideas, she'd listen, and then she'd tell me they were stupid ideas. And I became to sort of respect that, because she was one of the few people, or maybe one of the only people, that would tell me when my ideas were stupid, or when my choice of dates were stupid. Your mom was not afraid to tell me about those. Eating many meals together, helping to make some meals. I remember one time your mom and I made meatloaf flambé. We made meatloaf, and then she buried it in brandy, and we lit it, and almost set the house on fire. Jack's dad would come over for dinner frequently, and we just have a good time. And then pretty soon Catherine came along, And I used to enjoy, on my way over, stopping by a store on Clark Street and buying dresses for you, Catherine. I think they pretty much got given away once the boys started coming around, although Evie could use those now. So there was this couple, Gregory and Ludmila, from Russia. They lived downstairs, and your dad helped Gregory get a job, and they were frequent guests at your mom and dad's house, and we had fun with them. We were even invited to their son's wedding out in Skokie, I think it was. Well, actually, we didn't go to the wedding. We only went to the reception. And I remember your mom and I were poking at the pork chop in aspic, which was the main dish. But we were relieved to find out that every table had a bottle of vodka. So it didn't matter what they were serving us. We just drank our meal. Your mom and dad visited us wherever we moved. When we moved to Vermont, you and the girls were younger, and you'd always stop by in Fairhaven, either on your way to the cabin up in Northeast Kingdom, or if you were going to Long Island instead, you'd make a detour and come to Vermont. On 2 occasions, on your trips to Vermont, Maria and I went fishing. We got up at the crack of dawn. The first time we went fishing, we went to Lake St. Catherine. And we got up real early in the morning, went fishing. I remember we stopped and got bait. We got some minnows and got some worms. And I think all we did was fed the fish minnows and worms, but we had a great time. Then another time, we went to Glen Lake. And that time we took our dog with us, Sheba. Sheba loved to go fishing with me, and so she went along with Maria and me fishing. And once again, as I recall, I thought we caught fish, but the more I think about it, I don't think we did. But we had a great time. One year we went to an amusement park over in Glens Falls, New York, and as usual, your dad wanted to go on the roller coaster or the high things, and I think by this time all 3 of you were there. I think Catherine, Ellen, and Mae were all together on the trip, that one trip to Vermont. One time we had a child care conference for the organization I was working for, and naturally I invited your mom out to speak. And Governor Madeline Kunin, who was the governor of Vermont at the time, she came and she was a guest speaker herself. And I'll never forget you and your mom and Governor Kunin and one other person. I sat at the same table for lunch. And you would have thought that you and your mom, that you and the governor grew up together, for how easy your mom could talk to her and she to your mom. That was a lot of fun. Somewhere I think someone has a videotape of that conference, and I only wish I could find it. That would be great to have. But it's been so long ago, they might have even lost it by now. I don't know how many hours I must have spent with Maria over the years. Hundreds, maybe the thousands. We would spend so much time together. There was another time, I think you were on your way, your mom and dad were on your way to Long Island, and we met up in Allentown, and you stayed at a motel, and I think by this time, Catherine, Ellen, and Mae were all born, and I think Carrie and Amara might have been maybe 4, and Carrie was maybe 2.5, but we all went into an outdoor pool near the motel that you stayed at, and then I remember we all went back to my sister's house nearby and sat out on the deck and had dinner together. Uh, I'm obviously forgetting many more times than I'm remembering, but there's something else. All I can think of is your mom's smile. Just would light up a room, and well, your mom would light up a room. She'd come into a room, and you'd know she was there, if not by her voice, at least by her presence. So I remember that last phone call, and I'm both honored and sad that I was the last person to talk to her other than Jack. She sounded great, maybe a little tired, but given all the work she did, I can imagine how tired she was. Well, I think this is about as much as I can remember now. I'm sure I'll think of things later, and we'll all be laughing. I'll be laughing, celebrating your mom's life when this pandemic is behind us, sharing photographs, sharing memories. Oh, one more thing. I remember one night over at Judy and Joe's place when they lived in Lakeview. They threw a Hawaiian luau party in the middle of winter, and your mom, in the spirit of things, comes up wearing a Cubs baseball shirt, and she was right into all of that. She thought that was great. She met my mother, which I thought was pretty cool, and boy, all I can think of is that smile and that laugh. And as you all know, Mom, Maria, depending on who's watching this, she had her own vocabulary, or phrases that she would use. She loved gossip. So did I. And she and I would trade gossip when we had gossip to trade. And it was never mean, but boy, she loved to dig in on the latest stories about people that we knew. I'm thinking about Cherish the Ladies and how much your mom really loved that group. I don't know, I don't remember if she got to hear them one time when they were in Chicago. I don't remember. Another group she loved too was Sweet Honey in the Rock. And she loved music. So, that's my remembrances, at least for this day. And this will be continued, I'm sure, in the distant future. Or not so distant future.